In a previous video, we looked at some of the ads that helped pay for the cost of the Port Huron High School yearbooks. I have a couple more I wanted to show you before we go on to the next subject, and that is the Athenian Candy Works, the place for after-party lunches. Have you tried our hot lunches? Good service, good food, good ice cream, and good candy. Fine affections and ice cream. 232 Huron Avenue. This place looked familiar, but I couldn't remember if I had covered it in a previous DVD or not, and so I went to my guide on the Port Huron history of my videos and DVDs. And for your information, I am working on this. I've got it completed up to my most recent video, but it won't be completed until all my videos are completed. But anyway, it wasn't in there, so I knew I didn't cover it. So I started looking through my photographs, and I did find a picture of it, and it's this picture right here. You've seen this photograph in video number 23 when we covered that area, but for some reason I never noticed the Athenian Candy Works. It was located where most of us remember the Newberry 5 and 10 cent store being located. I think the reason I didn't notice it is because the signage is so dark and doesn't stand out. But if we lighten it up a little bit, you can see the signage quite clearly now. The Athenian Candy Works. Something else I never noticed about this picture, on the bottom left-hand corner, on the opposite side of the street, there's a trunk. I wonder if that might be the photographer's trunk of equipment. And while we're on the subject of Newberry store, here's a photograph that I found that I didn't have in the first video, and so we'll look at it now. But this is the basement of the Newberry 5 and 10 cent store, where we also sold a great deal of things down there. And if you recall, the wood floor on the first floor was quite squeaky, and when you were down in the basement, you could hear quite plainly people walking above your head. Today, this building is being renovated into lofts. The days of the 5 and 10 cent store are over. I'm glad to see the building is still being kept and not torn down. It's undetermined at this point what is going to go on the main floor, but here are some pictures of the renovation taking place. It appears there's going to be a lot of exposed brick in these lofts. It also appears that they're not going to be using the windows that were there originally, but are cutting new ones in it. Who would have ever thought that people would be living in the 5 and 10 cent store on Huron Avenue? J.J. Newberry. Another ad that I thought was a little unusual was a full-page ad taken out by the Women's Benefit Association, and in this it shows a picture of Bina West breaking ground for the new building on Military Street. And also, as you go down here, you can see that they were trying to get the kids in high school, the girls especially. Does your mother carry protection for you? And does she know about the Women's Benefit Association insurance policies? And the last one I want to look at is this one right here, Sid's. This was up along Lakeshore Drive, and I guess it was a restaurant. And we've been to Sid's several times, but never to the restaurant. You see, it was right on the beach, and we would go up there and swim and use their beach. I'm not sure if we were supposed to do that or not, but we did. And in this photograph here, you can see my mother and I sitting on the beach with Sid's in the background. That's also our dog in the background. All right, moving on. You recall in our last video, looking at the music department, we saw the House Glee Club, and I told you I would explain later about the House and also the Senate that was in the high school. The House was comprised of all boys, and the Senate was comprised of all girls. And they both represented a government body just like our federal government, and they took on government issues. And quite often they debated other cities, high schools in other cities, and the debates would center around the national events of the day. For example, in this yearbook, it says this: The House participated in one dual debate with Lansing on the subject of compulsory military training and lost both debates. A series of out-of-town debates have been planned, which usually prove interesting and instructive to both audience and debaters. Many bills are brought up on contemporary subjects, among them segregation of the Negro, provision for athletic training for the young ladies of Port Huron high school classes, and to provide for the abolishment of senior session rooms were treated in the bills. Members were deeply engrossed over their outcome, as was shown by the fiery scenes enacted at the different meetings. And in the Senate news, it talks about what they debated. In this particular issue, it says this: during the year, many important bills were introduced and discussed. The Senate challenged the Flint girls to debate, and the question decided upon was, resolve that the federal government shall own and operate all railroads in the United States. And here we have a photograph of the Senate girls sitting in front of the high school. Here we have a couple of photographs of the House of Representatives. This is one of the earlier photographs, and this one here is a little bit later. And we have one more of the Senate girls, and here you can see them at a banquet. All right, let's change gears now and go into the athletic department. Today, Port Huron High School has all types of sports for both male and female, but originally there were only two sports, and that was football and baseball. So we'll look at football first. Football started at Port Huron High in 1896. Like I said, the fellows only had two sports to choose from, baseball and football. During this time, they didn't have any fancy stadium to play in. They played in a field, and this field was located at the corner of Griswold and 7th Street. The field was surrounded by an 8-foot fence, as you can see here in the background. On the Sanborn map, you can see exactly where this field was located. It was on the southwest corner of Griswold and 7th Street. And if you look closely, you can see where the grandstand was for the football fans, and it backed up to Griswold Street. And we're fortunate to have a couple of pictures of it. In this photo, you can see the grandstand, and you can also see the 8-foot fence on the far right. In this photo, you can see the fellows playing, and you can see the grandstand in the background. Here's another photograph that was taken on this field. Notice there's hardly any protective equipment. Only a few had helmets, no shoulder pads until 1919. And I'm sure there was a lot of injuries involved in their playing. I think one of those injuries would have been loss of teeth. I know when I was playing football, this was in the early 1950s, face guards weren't around yet. Well, they were around, but we just didn't have them. We had one helmet that had a face guard. Unfortunately, I didn't have that helmet, and sure enough, boom, right in the mouth, I lost my tooth. I lost it again when we went to the new high school on 24th Street. We were in gym class, intramural basketball, and of course, I went up for a rebound, and the fellow went up for the rebound on me. He was shorter than I was, and when he came up and I came down, boom, I lost that same tooth again. Well, not the same tooth again, because the tooth that got knocked out this time was a replacement tooth attached to a partial plate, but he didn't know that. And I picked it up off the floor and I said, well, let's keep playing. And he said, man, you are one tough dude. And I never told him any different. Here's a great picture because it shows even back then they had advertisement on the fences. It also shows the homemade goalpost. In this photograph here, this was taken from quite a distance, and it gives you an idea of the layout of the field. And it looks like these football games were pretty popular. There's quite a crowd on the opposite side of the field where there was no grandstand to sit in. Today this block has changed quite a bit. It's no longer a field, but a very pleasant location for homes. This photograph was taken a couple years later, and as we go through a few of these photographs, you'll see the date of the football team in the bottom right-hand corner. The school gave each player pants and a sweater. Each player had to dress at home and then walk to the field. To get to out-of-town games, the team used interurban streetcars, which you see here, and of course, occasionally they'd take a train. In 1908, Tubby Myers came to Port Huron as a coach and athletic director from Western Michigan University. This is when the athletic teams in Port Huron really got started. And of course, this is a picture of him much later in life where he was honored with an award. From 1896 to 1919, the players played on the field at Griswold and 7th Street. And here are some of those teams. It was also 1919 that the school furnished the players with shoulder pads. It would appear that the first uniforms actually had striped sleeves, as you can see here. And here you can see those uniforms in action. As we zoom in on this 1917 team, look at this logo that they have in front of them. It's a little complicated, but if you look at it long enough, you can figure it out. There is a PHHS in there. During the year 1919, Port Huron High changed their playing field. It was no longer at Griswold and 7th. It was on the north end of Pine Grove Park. Of course, Pine Grove Park didn't look at all like it does today. It was pretty much a lot of trees with a track going around it. There are no pictures of this field, but we do have a picture that's being shown here. You can see this group of fellows in a football formation, a very early football formation. It was called the wedge. Matter of fact, it was not only the most popular, but almost exclusively they used the wedge. And that's what it was. They would just drive into the opponents and try to put that wedge right through their line. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. When they were playing at Pine Grove Park, they no longer dressed at home and walked to the field. They dressed at the YMCA, which was on 6th Street at the time, and then walked to the field, which is a pretty good walk. I did find this picture of the 1922 team, which I think was at Pine Grove Park. Now that I look at it, it was the same time period they would have been playing there. And if you look at the background, there's no boarded fence like there was on 7th and Griswold. And I think this might be some of the homes that might be on Prospect Street. Almost 100 years ago. Around 1923, the team moved their facilities to play to South Park. They moved to what was called then Watkins Field. And I know many of you have probably seen this map of where Watkins Field was on 24th Street. I know it's on the Port Huron history page, and it's also on a couple of Facebook history pages, but it's actually incorrect. It wasn't on 24th Street. It was actually in that pink section that is bordered by Electric and 24th Street. And the reason I know that is because I found the Sanborn map that shows exactly where it was. You can see Electric Avenue going up and off to the right and 24th Street going straight up. And as we zoom in here, you can see where Port Huron Builder Supply used to be. And just above that, you see the Port Huron Schools athletic field. The Port Huron Thresher Company was on 24th Street. And this will be looking at it from 24th Street. You can see the water tower behind it and the signage on the roof. So if you need further verification of where this field was, you can look at this photograph of the football team taken around 1923. This photograph was taken at Watkins Field, and if you look at the background to the left of the grandstands, you can see the signage on the roof for the Thresher Company, and you can also see the water tower. So that pretty much pinpoints where this field was. It was between 24th and Electric Avenue, and it was just north of Port Huron Building Supply. Actually, today it would be like the parking lot. Here's where it would be on Google Maps today. Well, our 15 minutes went by pretty quickly, and there's much more to come, but I guess we'll have to wait till the next video. So join me then.